Hi, I'm Dan. Thanks for checking in on Dimgaard this week. So I had a really good session this past Monday in the Draconic campaign, but there were some things that had kind of been nagging on me for a while that I thought would be a good topic. They fall into the same category, and that is in 5th edition, the concept of fairness, right? So there are a lot of mechanisms in 5th edition that are just patently unfair, and it's important, I think, to understand those and decide as a DM and kind of as a player how you want to approach them. So I'm going to, what I intend to do here is cover a series of kind of high level topics, and then related to fairness in 5th edition D&D, and then delve into some like more concrete examples, and then just sort of keep that up for about 20 minutes, and we'll see how that goes. And then one of the things this past week, there's a video channel it's centered around awesome combos on YouTube, which is really a fun channel. And one of their awesome combos was heat metal and teleport away. And I've used that as a DM. Like I have had that as a random encounter where a couple of invisible NPCs, the first one will cast heat metal on a DM or on a PC, and then the other one grabs them and they teleport away before the party can do anything. That's kind of a random encounter I've used in different environments. And so the first one, my first observation is that, yeah, that's a very difficult tactic. Like, that's hard to deal with, right? You can deal with it, right? Like you can't take the armor off, but you know, anyone around can cast a spell magic on the heat metal, and it ends right then, because it's an ongoing spell effect. But I don't see it as unfair, because it is available to both the PCs, and like I said, I've used it as random encounters for NPCs. So because anyone can use it, that means then that and you know, it's relying upon relatively common spells. There's lots of ways to teleport, even if it's just like Misty Step, which is a second level spell, and then run away. But there are charms that allow you to teleport. There are racial abilities that allow you to teleport. There are feats that allow you to teleport. All of which you could take at relatively low level, and then heat metal is just a second level spell. So you can do it relatively like in tier 1, and CR, you know, as little as CR 1/8 creatures could conceivably do it as well, right? You think, what do you mean a CR? Well, so take a human NPC, CR 1/8 NPC, take just like, I don't know, a cultist, and they have as a racial ability, they get, for a variant human, they get a feat, so they could take face step. So now they've got Misty Step, and then they could have a spell rot tattoo. You know, admittedly, it would be a rare spell rot tattoo, and they're using that resource to teleport away. I mean, it's uncommon second level, but they could have a spell rot tattoo of heat metal, right? So they could heat metal, and then Misty Step away and run away, and someone is there. And you can do that with a like well within the expected power curve of, like, it's the idea that a cultist would not have a second level spell rot tattoo or is just, you know, that's not reasonable. Like, that's just, it's an uncommon magic item. It's a consumable. Of course, there are lots of if you even in a very tight campaign like Dimgaard, it's tied on magic items. Consumables, uncommon consumables are something that should skew towards the most common magic items encountered. And then, you know, just as PCs, you could just do it just as part of your character build. So it's available to both groups, and in tier 1, I don't see it as unfair. It's just something that has to be accounted for. And I'll get back to accounting for these things. That deals with the issue of balance, not so much fairness. I'm going to deal with balance towards the end here. But there are some things that are just inherently unfair, right? They are unfair. And for PCs, they make death saves, right? Like, they go to 0 hit points and they're not dead yet, right? That's a uniquely PC ability. I say uniquely, it's almost uniquely. There are you can as a DM, you can assign death saves to a significant NPC as well, but as far as requirements, it's uniquely an NPC or a PC thing. So that's unfair, right? Like, it's something that PCs always get to do and almost never NPCs get to do, or monsters get to do. Same thing with Polymorph. PCs get to polymorph each other into big mean creatures that they then get to play as if they are intelligent, real creatures, like thinking rationally, right? That no one ever gets polymorphed into the T-Rex and it acts like a T-Rex, right? Everyone gets polymorphed into the T-Rex and then acts like another party member. And you know, I guess you're free to call that out as the DM. You're like, you're not acting like a T-Rex. You have the mentality of a T-Rex. You need to start acting like a T-Rex. And if that means eating your fellow party members, then that's what you need to do, because that's good role playing, and that's what the story calls for at this point. But no one does that, right? That polymorph is inherently unfair. There are no monsters that are, now there are creatures that can shapeshift, but that is significantly different than polymorph. But then on the other side, there are also things that are inherently unfair towards the DM or the DM's NPCs, or the DM monsters, or the environment, or whatever you want to refer to it. So take, for example, shadows, right? Shadows have a strength drain, right? No other creature, no NPC has that ability. No NPC or intellect devourers have, you know, the ability to directly attack your intelligence with the probability that they're going to kill you by just beating your intelligence, right? And those are things that PCs can't do. They can force you to make certain saving throws, and they, you know, deciding that you're weak in those, but they can't just say, oh, you know what, if you have a low intelligence, I have a way to just kill you, right? Or if you have a low strength, I have a way to just kill you because of your low strength. The ability to directly attack ability scores is unfair to PCs, mainly because just as an expected part of being a PC is that you are going to be light in ability scores, in particular, either your strength or your intelligence. Almost no PC, no reasonably optimized PC builds have both high intelligence and high strength, which means then that you are always going to be vulnerable to either a shadow or an intellect devourer at very low levels. And that's just unfair, right? That's just a bias that's built into the game that is unfair to PCs. And you see that show up sometimes in published adventures, and that gets again to balance. Spell glyphs, right? So the ability to take a spell and store it into a glyph of warding. That's inherently unfair. And you say, well, no, any PCs can do that too, except that PCs are almost always going to someone else's environment, right? They're almost always going to a place where someone else has prepared it. So almost always the spell glyphs are going to be the opponents. Almost never do you have a situation where the PCs are being attacked in their sanctuary and could have placed spell glyphs there to protect it. The way that just like 99 out of 100 episodes are designed so that the PCs, you go to that place, and if they have the resources, if it makes sense, those opponents should have spell glyphs protecting their place. But they are inherently unfair. Now, I use them a lot. I find them extremely useful in Dimgaard. They do all sorts of stuff for Dimgaard. They really help move a story along. Even things like if someone is attacked, then it triggers a spell glyph containing sending to notify their allies, right? So then that really does undermine the ability of players to short circuit an adventure by we just need to go kill this one particular person, and then we have short circuited the entire adventure, right? There are just things you can do with spell glyphs that are just really powerful and useful as a DM, and I use them a lot. But they are unfair. I do recognize that PCs are never going to get the utility out of them that their opponents are. Then there are some things that are just bad, that we don't want anyone using, because they just make the game unfun. And like the most recent one that really comes to mind is Silvery Bards out of Strixhaven. Silvery Bards, first level spell, it's technically not unfair, because as a first level divination, you could drop that anywhere you wanted, because it doesn't actually do damage. So you could drop that on any NPC or even any monster if you wanted to. You could even put it in spell glyphs, right? So you could put it, but it's first level spell. If you're allowing Strixhaven content, then it's available to first level PCs, right? So, but it's just a bad spell. It's just bad for the game. It just skews attack rolls and all D20s in such a bad direction that it's while not necessarily unfair, it's just bad for the game. We look at the same thing like encumbrance, right? It's just bad for the game. There's just no need for it. It's just tedious bookkeeping, and when it does play a role, then it's never in a way that makes the game more enjoyable, right? And same thing with mapping, and this may be a personal opinion of mine. I know that there's a lot of detail in the rules about how to map and there's there are a lot of tools out there for building maps and for even like how to reveal maps. And I just think that mapping is just a tedious, because it doesn't ever happen in the real world, right? Like explorers, like if you look at the charts that like Lewis and Clark or whoever made, they're marking down 5x5 grids. They're like, oh, there's a big mountain here, right? There's a big river here. There's this sort of stuff in the area. They're not trying to be surveyors the way that a lot of the D&D rules tend to, which there's a big difference between cartography and surveying, right? I think that colorful maps are an enhancement, that they even battle maps like can be a good enhancement. But the idea of requiring mapping is just, yeah, just makes no sense. Bad storytelling. And then there are some things that are kind of up for debate, things that come up. And I've already mentioned one of them, and that's spell rot tattoos. I know that a lot of people think that spell rot tattoos are bad for the game, because you end up then throwing spells and spell effects into monsters and PCs who really are not designed to utilize spells and habits. Like you can say, oh yeah, dispel magic, uncommon spell rot tattoo. Yeah, I'll make sure that those are, that every group of monsters has those somewhere in there, right? Someone walking around with a dispel magic spell rot tattoo. And the same thing generally with counterspell. Like, there are people just do not like counterspell. They think it's that it's just an unfun spell, that it just it just sort of gimps the storytelling and the progress of the game, and that both sides should just eschew it. No one claims that it's unfair, because similarly, it's a third level spell. So again, an uncommon spell rot tattoo, but both of these, by the way, I am firmly in the middle. I have made a commitment to the middle on. I have yet to form my own opinion on whether, but there are a whole line of spells and abilities that fall online. Pack tactics, it's similar thing. There are people who just do not like pack tactics, like bonus action disengage. There are a whole bunch of things that people think are just like not good, that they do bad things, and that I'm kind of like, well, I don't know. I think that used occasionally, it's fun. So, and that kind of brings me to where I was trying to get to. So as the DM, right, absolutely as the DM, the goal here is to have a balance, right? You don't, or at least I don't. I guess there are some DMs who really like it. No, I don't want it to be balanced. I want it to be a torture. I want it to be a Tomb of Horrors experience for every time I sit down. And I don't. I want the game after 4 hours to have been where everyone involved, including myself, thinks, that was a really hard-earned, difficult chapter of the story, but it was balanced. It generated interesting, fun story elements, right? And so in order to do that, you have to, like, very knowingly and deliberately not use all the tools available as the DM, right? If you're preparing material as the writer, right? You've got to know, yeah, there are things that I could just sort of pile up here and make this really, really hard, but also like really, really not fun and unfair. 5th edition is different in that aspect. So in previous editions of D&D, going back to AD&D, Now AD&D, it was not balanced either. Like Tomb of Horrors being the example of that. Like, you know, Tomb of Horrors completely obeys the rules of AD&D, but it was, you know, it was just a nightmare. And I don't mean in a good way. I mean, it was just like no fun. And a lot of the challenge adventures in that era, like the ones that they like, there was a model at conventions where you would go in and to an adventure, and you're like, okay, this is a 4-hour slot. We know we're not going to complete the adventure, right? There's just too much content here for us to complete. The winner of this competition is the group that makes it the furthest, right? So these would be overly deadly dungeons. They would have elements in there that were designed to stall and grind down the players, not necessarily the PCs, but the players. But it was, you know, it was, you know, D&D at that time was not particularly popular, but within the D&D community, there was a definite group that enjoyed that. They enjoyed the rules challenge involved. And then in second edition, you saw a move towards in putting the balance into the game, right? You had much more direct constraints on what the DM could put into encounters, and then that was even more formalized in 3.5. 3.5, you know, you're like, okay, you have the average party level. An encounter will have a rating that says, you know, this is the average party level that should successfully complete this, and the DM should not. And calculating that APL was like it was a very rigorous mathematical process. It wasn't near the type of FUD situation you saw in AD&D or now in 5th edition, and that continued in 4th, right? But in 5th edition, we go back to saying, no, yeah, you're the DM. It's your responsibility to balance it. And you know, I can tell you that as someone who really understands the rules for creature construction, creature selection, and CR and encounter design, I can make easy encounters that have greater than a 50% likelihood of TPKing a party, right? Give me a party of X level, I can design an easy encounter that will likely TPK that party. You should not do that, right? Like that's not balanced. It's not fair. It's not balanced. It's not conducive to fun play or good storytelling. And that's what we shoot for in Dimgaard, right? We want a collaborative storytelling event that is interesting and entertaining for everyone involved, including the DM, but especially for the players. And then we want at the end to have this heroic narrative. Like, what did we do? We saved the continent. We invaded the abyss. We implemented a regime change within the Drow Empire, and then faced Lawleth, and sometimes ended up imprisoning her for a significant amount of time. Then, you know, that's the type of story we want after 40 episodes, right? Yeah, so that's what we're shooting for in Dimgaard. Okay, so this is the point where I again solicit the viewers to join in. I guess it is mildly cathartic to record these, but the real reason that I record these is to promote engagement, to find people with similar interests who have opinions that they want to share, and will jump in and do that. So if you are inclined, please do that. Please leave a comment, or either on the YouTube comments, or I post these to social media, Twitter, Facebook. Jump in there, leave a comment, something that you think is important or relevant, or disagreement. I hope that I am thoroughly open to constructive criticism, and that I foster well-reasoned opinions, even whenever I disagree with them. Please, if you have something to say about any of these topics that I've gone over today, why any one of them is unfair or not unfair, or why you don't think that balance should be the responsibility of the DM, on and on. Like I hit on a lot of opinions here that people may have disagreement with, and I would love to hear those disagreements. And feel free to confirm as well. It's always nice to find out that, so yeah, someone agrees with you. If you find these videos useful, please hit the like button so that the algorithm picks it up and will recommend it to more people. And I try to do one of these every week, although I do occasionally miss a week for various personal reasons or professional reasons. But I do try to do them every week, so you can subscribe, make sure you don't miss them. And then I have, in all of these, I've started putting my social media contacts, so that you can follow or communicate with me via social media. And I love to hear from people. Until next week, thanks for tuning in.